"Daddy, she looks like Mommy." Those 5 words, spoken by a 7-year-old boy in a crowded diner, would change 3 lives forever. The rain was coming down hard on the streets of Phoenix that Tuesday afternoon when Marcus Williams pulled his silver Honda into the parking lot of Miller's Diner. His 2-year-old son Tommy was strapped in his car seat, babbling about the colorful toys scattered around him. Marcus had been dreading this moment for weeks. Today was the day he had to tell his little boy that Mommy wasn't coming home anymore. Sarah Williams had been gone for 3 months now. The doctor said the heart condition was rare, unpredictable. One day she was laughing with Tommy in their backyard. The next she was in intensive care fighting for her life. Marcus still couldn't believe she was gone. The house felt empty without her voice, without her singing lullabies to Tommy every night before bed. "Daddy hungry," Tommy announced from the back seat, pointing at the neon sign of the diner through the rain-streaked window. His big brown eyes, so much like his mother's, sparkled with innocent excitement. Marcus forced a smile, knowing this conversation would change everything for both of them. As they walked toward the entrance, Marcus's heart felt heavy. How do you explain death to a 2-year-old? How do you tell a child that the person he loves most in the world is never coming back? The grief counselor had given him advice, but nothing felt right. Nothing felt adequate for this moment. But what Marcus didn't know was that fate had something completely unexpected waiting for them inside that small-town diner. Something that would turn their world upside down in ways he never could have imagined. As he pushed open the glass door and heard the familiar chime of the entrance bell, Marcus had no idea that the next few minutes would change everything he thought he knew about his wife's past. The warmth of Miller's Diner hit them immediately as they stepped inside, a welcome relief from the cold October rain. The smell of coffee and fresh pie filled the air, mixing with the soft sounds of conversations from the other customers. Marcus unbuckled Tommy from his stroller and lifted him into a red vinyl booth near the window. The little boy immediately pressed his nose against the glass, watching the raindrops race down the surface. "Look, Daddy, water racing," Tommy giggled, pointing at the window with his tiny finger. His laugh was so pure, so innocent. Marcus felt his chest tighten. In a few minutes, he would have to shatter that innocence forever. He would have to explain why Mommy's chair at home would always be empty now. A waitress approached their table with a friendly smile. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, with blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail and kind blue eyes. Her name tag read Jessica. She pulled out her notepad and looked down at Tommy, who was still fascinated by the rain outside. "What can I get you folks today?" Jessica asked, her voice warm and welcoming. Marcus was about to answer when something caught his attention from across the diner. Near the kitchen entrance, he saw another waitress carrying a tray of food. She was turned away from him, but something about her posture, the way she moved, seemed strangely familiar. That's when Tommy suddenly stopped watching the rain. His little head turned toward the kitchen area, his brown eyes widening in a way Marcus had never seen before. The toddler's mouth fell open slightly and he raised his small hand to point across the diner. What happened next would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life. "Daddy." Tommy's voice cut through the diner's ambient noise like a knife. "She looks like her mommy." The little boy's words were crystal clear, more articulate than Marcus had ever heard him speak. Every conversation in the nearby booth seemed to pause. Jessica, the waitress, stopped writing on her notepad and looked in the direction Tommy was pointing. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. He followed his son's gaze across the diner and saw the other waitress more clearly now. She was about 30 years old, with dark brown hair that fell in gentle waves around her shoulders. When she turned slightly to hand a plate to a customer, Marcus caught a glimpse of her profile. His heart stopped beating. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. The same delicate nose, the same soft jawline, the same graceful way of moving that had first attracted him to Sarah 7 years ago. But this woman was very much alive, very much real, standing just 20 feet away from them in this small Phoenix diner. "Mommy! Mommy!" Tommy began shouting, his little voice filled with pure joy and excitement. He started trying to climb out of the booth, reaching toward the woman with both arms extended. "Daddy, it's Mommy, she's here." Several other customers turned to look at their table now, some with concern, others with curiosity. Marcus grabbed Tommy gently but firmly, his hand shaking. This couldn't be happening. Sarah was gone. He had watched them lower her casket into the ground 3 months ago. He had held Tommy during the funeral as his son asked over and over when Mommy was coming home. But the woman across the diner looked so much like his deceased wife that it felt like seeing a ghost in broad daylight. The woman Tommy thought was his mother finally turned around completely, and Marcus felt like he was looking at Sarah's identical twin. Same brown eyes, same smile lines, same everything. She noticed the commotion at their table and began walking over, probably thinking there was some kind of emergency with the child. "Is everything okay over here?" she asked, her voice soft and concerned. But it was different from Sarah's voice, slightly higher pitched, with a hint of a southern accent that Sarah never had. When she got closer, Marcus could see subtle differences. This woman was maybe an inch taller than Sarah. Her hair was a shade darker, but the overall resemblance was still absolutely stunning. Tommy was practically bouncing in his seat now, tears of happiness streaming down his little face. "Mommy came back! Daddy, Mommy came back!" He reached out toward the waitress with both arms, expecting her to pick him up like Sarah used to do every day. The woman looked confused, but knelt down to Tommy's eye level with the natural instincts of someone who understood children. "Hey there, sweetie," she said gently. "I think you might have me confused with someone else. My name is Elena Rodriguez. What's your name?" Marcus finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "I'm so sorry. You look exactly like his mother. She passed away a few months ago, and he's only 2 years old. He doesn't really understand yet." The words felt like broken glass coming out of his throat. Elena's expression immediately changed to one of deep compassion. She looked at Tommy, who was still reaching for her with tears in his eyes, then back at Marcus. Without hesitation, she sat down in the booth across from them, her shift at the diner temporarily forgotten. "Oh, honey," she said softly to Tommy, "I can see why you thought I was your mommy. Sometimes people look very similar to each other." She reached across the table and gently took one of Tommy's small hands in hers. The little boy immediately stopped crying, staring at her with wonder and confusion. Marcus watched in amazement as his son, who had been inconsolable for months, began to calm down just from this stranger's presence. Elena had the same gentle way with children that Sarah had possessed. It was like watching his wife's spirit somehow inhabit another person's body. "What was your mommy's name?" Elena asked Tommy, speaking to him like he was a real person instead of just a crying child. This was exactly what Sarah used to do. She always treated Tommy with respect, never talking down to him because of his age. "Her name was Sarah," Tommy said, his voice still shaky but no longer hysterical. "She used to sing to me before bed, and she made the best pancakes in the whole world, and she always smelled like flowers." Marcus had to look away. He couldn't believe his 2-year-old son was having this conversation. Elena looked up at Marcus with tears forming in her own eyes. "I'm Elena Rodriguez. I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine how difficult this must be for both of you." There was something in her voice, something that suggested she understood grief on a personal level. "How long have you worked here?" Marcus asked, trying to make sense of this impossible situation. Something felt different about this encounter, like it was meant to happen somehow. "Actually, this is only my 2nd week," Elena replied, still holding Tommy's hand. "I just moved to Phoenix from Austin, Texas. I'm trying to start over after my own difficult situation." She glanced down at Tommy, who was studying her face with the intensity only children possess. Marcus noticed she was wearing a simple gold wedding ring, but something about the way she touched it suggested complicated circumstances. There were mysteries here, layers of story that went far beyond a chance resemblance to his deceased wife. "Daddy, why does Elena look like Mommy?" Tommy asked with the brutal honesty that only comes from children. It was the same question burning in Marcus's mind, but hearing it from his 2-year-old son made it impossible to ignore. Elena took a deep breath as if she was about to reveal something she had never told anyone before. "Tommy, sometimes life has very strange coincidences. Sometimes people look like other people for reasons we don't understand right away." She looked directly at Marcus when she said this, and he felt like she was trying to communicate something important. "Tell me in the comments, do you believe in fate, or do you think this is just a crazy coincidence? Let me know what you think before I reveal what happens next." Elena excused herself for a moment to speak with her manager about taking a longer break. Marcus watched her walk away, still unable to process what was happening. When she returned, she was carrying 2 cups of coffee and a small glass of chocolate milk for Tommy. "I told my manager about the situation," she said, sliding back into the booth. "He said I could take as long as needed. This isn't exactly a normal customer service issue." She gave Marcus a gentle smile that reminded him painfully of Sarah's way of making light of serious situations. Tommy was fascinated by Elena, studying every detail of her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Elena, do you have little boys?" he asked, taking a sip of his chocolate milk. "I had a little girl," Elena replied quietly. Her name was Isabella. She would have been about your age now. The way she said, "would have been," sent a chill down Marcus's spine. This woman had also experienced loss. Marcus felt something shift in the atmosphere between them. They weren't just strangers anymore. They were two people who had both been touched by tragedy, both trying to figure out how to keep living when the most important person in their world was gone. "What happened?" Marcus asked gently, though he immediately worried he was being too personal. But Elena looked like she needed to tell someone, like she had been carrying this burden alone for too long. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. "Car accident 8 months ago. Isabella and my husband David were driving home from her daycare when a drunk driver ran a red light." She paused, looking out the window at the rain. "I lost both of them in one moment." The silence that followed Elena's revelation was heavy with shared understanding. Marcus reached across the table and touched her hand, the same way she had comforted Tommy just minutes before. Two strangers bound together by unthinkable loss, sitting in a small diner while rain continued to fall outside. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and he meant it in a way that went deeper than polite sympathy. He was sorry in the way that only someone who has experienced similar pain can understand. "How do you get through it?" "Some days I don't," Elena admitted. "Some days I wake up and forget for just a few seconds that they're gone. Then reality hits and it's like losing them all over again. Moving to Phoenix was supposed to help me start fresh, but you can't outrun grief." Tommy, with the remarkable intuition that children sometimes possess, seemed to sense the sadness in Elena's voice. He climbed out of his side of the booth and walked around to where she was sitting. Without saying a word, he climbed up next to her and gave her a hug. Elena broke down crying, not the polite tears of sympathy, but the deep, soul-shaking sobs of someone who had been holding everything inside for too long. She hugged Tommy back, and Marcus watched his son comfort this stranger with the same natural kindness his mother had always shown. "Isabella used to hug me just like this," Elena whispered through her tears. "She had the same gentle heart that Tommy has." For the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus felt like they weren't alone in their pain. "Before I continue, I want to know, have you ever had a stranger come into your life at exactly the moment you needed them most? Share your story in the comments below." Over the next hour, Marcus and Elena shared their stories. She told him about the life she had built in Austin, how she and David had been high school sweethearts who got married young and dreamed of having a big family, how Isabella had been their miracle baby after years of trying, and how losing them both had left her feeling like a ghost wandering through her own life. Marcus told her about Sarah's heart condition, how they had thought they had more time, how he had proposed to her in this very diner 5 years ago because it was where they had their first date. How coming here today was supposed to be part of saying goodbye to those memories, but instead it felt like the beginning of something he couldn't yet understand. "Sarah always said she believed in guardian angels," Marcus said, watching Tommy color with crayons that Elena had borrowed from the hostess station. "She used to tell Tommy that even when people go to heaven, they still find ways to help the people they love." Elena smiled through her tears. David used to say something similar. He believed that love was stronger than death, that somehow the people we lose continue to impact our lives in ways we might not even recognize. Tommy looked up from his coloring book and studied both adults with his serious brown eyes. "Maybe Mommy sent Elena to help us," he said with the matter-of-fact wisdom that sometimes comes from children. "Maybe Isabella sent Elena to help us too." The simplicity of his observation hit both Marcus and Elena like a physical force. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought. Sometimes 2-year-olds see things that adults are too complicated to understand. As the afternoon wore on, other customers came and went, but Marcus, Elena, and Tommy remained in their booth by the window. Elena's manager, a kind older man named Frank, brought them sandwiches and told Elena not to worry about getting back to work. "Sometimes life is more important than serving coffee," he said with a knowing smile. Tommy had completely warmed up to Elena. He was showing her his favorite toy cars, telling her about his goldfish named Bubbles, and sharing all the important details of his 2-year-old life. Elena listened to every word like it was the most fascinating conversation she had ever had. "Elena, Will you come to our house? Tommy asked suddenly. I want to show you Mommy's pictures. She was really pretty like you. The innocence of the invitation brought tears to both adults' eyes. Marcus felt torn. Part of him wanted to maintain boundaries to protect Tommy from getting too attached to someone they barely knew. But another part of him recognized that his son had been happier in the last few hours than he had been in months. Tommy, Elena has her own life, Marcus started to say. But Elena interrupted him gently. Actually, I don't have anywhere to be today, she said. If it's okay with your daddy, I would love to see pictures of your mommy. She must have been a very special lady to have such a wonderful little boy. Marcus looked at Elena, trying to read her motivations. Was this pity? Loneliness? Something else entirely? But when he met her eyes, he saw the same thing he felt in his own heart. A desperate need to connect with someone who understood what it felt like to have your whole world ripped away without warning. The drive to Marcus's house was surreal. Elena followed in her old Honda Civic while Tommy chattered nonstop in the back seat about all the things he wanted to show her. Marcus kept glancing in his rearview mirror, still unable to believe this was really happening. Their house was a modest two-story home in a quiet suburb, with Sarah's flower garden still blooming in the front yard despite Marcus's neglect. Elena commented on how beautiful the roses were, and Marcus had to tell her that Sarah had planted every single bush herself. Inside, the house still felt like a shrine to his deceased wife. Her coffee mug was still in the sink from the morning she died. Her reading glasses were still on the nightstand. Marcus had been unable to move or change anything, as if preserving her physical space could somehow keep her memory alive. Tommy immediately ran to the living room mantel where several framed photos of Sarah were displayed. Look, Elena, this is my mommy. He pointed to each picture with pride, telling Elena about when and where each photo was taken. Elena studied the photographs with genuine interest, and Marcus watched her face carefully. The resemblance was even more striking when Elena was standing next to Sarah's pictures. They could have been sisters or even twins separated at birth. She was beautiful, Elena said softly, and she looked so happy in every picture. You can tell she loved her family very much. Daddy, doesn't Elena look just like Mommy? Tommy asked, looking back and forth between Elena and the photographs. It's like Mommy is here, but different. Elena spent the evening helping Marcus give Tommy his bath and read him bedtime stories. She seemed to know instinctively how to handle a 2-year-old, when to be gentle and when to be firm. Tommy ate up the attention, giggling and playing in ways Marcus hadn't seen since before Sarah died. One more story, Tommy demanded as Elena tucked him into his race car bed. She looked at Marcus, who nodded his approval. She read 3 more stories before Tommy's eyes finally began to droop. Elena, will you come back tomorrow? Tommy asked sleepily. I want to show you my sandbox in the backyard. We'll see, sweetie, Elena replied, kissing his forehead the same way Sarah used to do. Sweet dreams. Downstairs, Marcus made coffee while Elena looked at more family photos on the refrigerator. The house felt different with her in it. Less like a mausoleum, more like a home where people actually lived. Thank you, Marcus said, handing her a mug. I haven't seen Tommy this happy in months. I was starting to worry that he might never be his joyful self again. Thank you for letting me be part of your evening, Elena replied. I haven't felt useful to anyone in a very long time. Being around Tommy made me remember what it felt like to matter to someone. They sat on the couch, talking quietly while rain continued to fall outside. Marcus found himself sharing things about his grief that he had never told anyone. Elena understood in a way that his family and friends, despite their good intentions, simply couldn't. Can I ask you something that might sound crazy? Marcus said as they sat in the comfortable darkness of his living room, with only the light from the kitchen illuminating their conversation. After today, I don't think anything would sound crazy to me, Elena replied with a gentle laugh. Do you think it's possible that people we've lost somehow guide us to the people we need to meet? I mean, the chances of Tommy and me walking into that specific diner at that exact moment, when you happen to be working there, it feels like more than coincidence. Elena was quiet for a long moment, considering his question seriously. 8 months ago, I would have said that was just wishful thinking. But lately, I've had some experiences that made me wonder if there's more to this world than what we can see and touch. She told him about the strange dreams she had been having about Isabella, dreams where her daughter seemed to be trying to tell her something important, about the way certain songs would come on the radio at exactly the moments when Elena needed to hear them most, about the chain of seemingly random events that had led her to Phoenix, and to the job at Miller's diner. Maybe our kids are still looking out for us somehow, Elena said. Maybe they know we need help healing and they're finding ways to connect us with people who can understand our pain. Marcus felt goosebumps rise on his arms. Sarah had always been spiritual, always believed in things that couldn't be explained by science or logic. If she was somehow orchestrating this meeting, it would be exactly the kind of thing she would do. Over the following weeks, Elena became a regular part of Marcus and Tommy's routine. She would stop by after her shifts at the diner, helping with dinner and bedtime stories. Tommy began calling her Elena Mommy, which should have worried Marcus but somehow felt perfectly natural. Elena never tried to replace Sarah or pretend to be something she wasn't. She talked openly with Tommy about his real mother, looking at pictures and sharing memories. But she also brought her own special energy to their home, her own way of making Tommy laugh and feel loved. One evening, Marcus found Elena sitting in the backyard, looking through a photo album of Isabella and David. Her face was streaked with tears, but they seemed like healing tears rather than the desperate grief he had witnessed that first day. "Some days are harder than others," she said, when she noticed him watching her. "But being around Tommy, being part of a family again, it's helping me remember that life can still be beautiful even after devastating loss." Marcus sat down beside her on the porch swing that Sarah had insisted on installing 3 years ago. "Elena, I need to be honest about something. I'm starting to have feelings for you that go beyond gratitude and friendship. Is that terrible? Is it too soon?" Elena looked at him with understanding rather than surprise. "I've been having the same feelings," she admitted, "and I've been feeling guilty about them. Like I'm betraying David and Isabella's memory by finding happiness again. Before I reveal what happens next, tell me in the comments, when someone you love dies, how long do you think you should wait before allowing yourself to love again? I really want to know your thoughts on this." That night, Marcus and Elena had the most honest conversation of their relationship. They talked about the guilt that comes with moving forward after loss, about whether loving again means forgetting the people who died, about how to honor their deceased spouses while still allowing themselves to heal. "Sarah used to say that love multiplies rather than divides," Marcus said. "She always believed that the heart gets bigger when you love more people, not smaller. David told me once that if anything ever happened to him, he would want me to find happiness again," Elena replied. "He said that love is meant to create more love, not to end when one person dies." They realized that Tommy had been the bridge between their two broken hearts. His innocent acceptance of Elena, his natural ability to love without fear or reservation, had shown them both that it was possible to honor the past while still embracing the future. "I think our children brought us together," Elena said. "Sarah and Isabella and David, I think they knew we needed each other." That night, for the first time since Sarah died, Marcus didn't feel like he was drowning in grief. Elena didn't cure his pain, but she made it bearable. She made it possible to imagine a future that included joy alongside the sorrow. They kissed for the first time on the porch swing, with Sarah's roses blooming all around them and the sound of Tommy's peaceful breathing drifting through his bedroom window above. 6 months later, Marcus proposed to Elena in the same booth at Miller's diner where they had first met. Tommy helped by hiding the ring in his toy box and presenting it to Elena with the solemnity of someone carrying out a very important mission. "Elena, Mommy, Daddy wants to ask you something," Tommy announced loudly, causing every customer in the diner to turn and look at their table. Elena said yes through happy tears, and the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Frank, the manager who had been so understanding that first day, brought them champagne on the house. Jessica, the waitress who had witnessed that first miraculous encounter, served them a piece of congratulatory pie. Their wedding was small and intimate, held in Marcus and Sarah's backyard under the roses that had brought them together. Tommy served as ring bearer, carrying the rings in a small wooden box that had belonged to Isabella. They included both Sarah and David in the ceremony, acknowledging that their love story was built on the foundation of 2 other love stories that had ended too soon. Elena moved into the house that had once felt like a mausoleum, but now felt like a home again. They created new traditions while honoring old ones. Sarah's pictures remained on the mantle, but they were joined by pictures of Elena, David, and Isabella. The past and present coexisted in harmony. Tommy thrived in ways that surprised everyone. Having Elena in his life didn't make him forget his biological mother, but it gave him permission to be happy again. He began calling Elena Mama Elena. and talking about both his mothers with equal love and pride. A year after their wedding, Elena discovered she was pregnant. The news was both joyful and complicated, bringing up emotions neither of them had expected. Would having a biological child together change their family dynamic? Would Tommy feel replaced? Would the new baby somehow dishonor the memories of the children they had lost? But Tommy surprised them with his reaction. When they told him he was going to be a big brother, he immediately went to his room and came back with his favorite stuffed animal, a teddy bear that Sarah had given him for his first birthday. "The baby can have this," Tommy said seriously, placing the bear on Elena's still flat stomach. "Mama Sarah gave it to me, and now I want to give it to my little sister or brother." Elena and Marcus looked at each other with tears in their eyes. Their 3-year-old son had just shown them that love isn't diminished by being shared. It's multiplied. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and they decided to name the baby Sarah if it was a girl, or David if it was a boy, not as replacements for the people they had lost, but as a way of keeping their memory alive in the next generation. When Elena went into labor on a snowy February morning, Tommy stayed with Marcus's parents while they rushed to the hospital. After 12 hours of labor, Elena gave birth to a healthy baby girl with dark hair and brown eyes that looked exactly like her mother's. "Hello, little Sarah," Marcus whispered as he held his daughter for the first time. "You have a very special name to live up to." Baby Sarah brought a different kind of healing to their family. She was a symbol of hope, proof that life continues even after devastating loss. Tommy was the perfect big brother, always wanting to help feed her, change her diaper, and sing her the same lullabies that his first mama had sung to him. Elena often marveled at the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. If David and Isabella hadn't died, she never would have moved to Phoenix. If Sarah hadn't passed away, Marcus wouldn't have been in that diner needing comfort. If Tommy hadn't possessed the innocent wisdom to recognize love in an unexpected form, they might never have connected at all. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had met under different circumstances?" Elena asked Marcus one evening as they watched Tommy read a picture book to baby Sarah. "I think we were meant to meet exactly when and how we did," Marcus replied. "Our previous losses prepared us to appreciate what we have now. We don't take any of this for granted because we know how quickly it can be taken away." They had learned to live with gratitude rather than fear, to cherish each ordinary moment because they understood how precious ordinary moments really are. They talked openly with Tommy about all 4 of his parents, the biological mother and father who had loved him first, and the mama and daddy who were loving him now. As baby Sarah grew older, she would learn about the aunt she was named after, the uncle David who would have adored her, and the sister Isabella who was waiting for her in heaven. Their family tree was complicated, but it was rooted in love that transcended death itself. On Tommy's 5th birthday, they had a party in the backyard with both sets of grandparents, Elena's family from Texas, and all the friends who had supported them through their journey. As Marcus watched his son blow out his candles, while Elena held baby Sarah and everyone sang happy birthday, he felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Tommy made his wish and looked up at the sky. "I wished for Mama Sarah and Daddy David and Sister Isabella to know that we're happy," he announced to everyone. "And I wished for them to keep watching over us." Later that evening, after all the guests had gone home and the children were asleep, Marcus and Elena sat on their porch swing, looking through photo albums that now included pictures from both their previous lives and their current one. "Tommy was right that first day at the diner," Elena said softly. "You do look like Mommy did send me to help you, and I think Isabella and David sent me to you too." "Do you think they're watching us now?" Marcus asked, looking up at the stars that were just becoming visible in the darkening sky. "I know they are," Elena replied with certainty, "and I think they're proud of what we've built together. We didn't forget them by learning to love again. We honored them by proving that love is stronger than death." As if in response to her words, a shooting star streaked across the sky above their house. They both saw it, both made the same silent wish, that their blended family would continue to be blessed with love, health, and the wisdom to appreciate every ordinary miracle that came their way. Their love story hadn't begun with a fairy tale meeting. It had begun with tragedy, loss, and a 2-year-old boy's innocent recognition that sometimes angels come disguised as waitresses in small-town diners. But the ending they were writing together was more beautiful than any fairy tale because it was real. It was hard-earned, and it was proof that even in the darkest times, hope and love find a way to survive. Marcus, Elena, and their children learned that grief doesn't end, but it transforms. The love they had for Sarah, David, and Isabella didn't diminish their love for each other. It made it deeper, more precious, more conscious of how fleeting and sacred love really is. Sometimes the most powerful love stories are the ones that begin in loss and grow into something that honors both the past and the future. Sometimes guardian angels work through the kindness of strangers, the wisdom of children, and the courage of adults who choose to love again despite knowing how much love can hurt. And sometimes, just sometimes, a 2-year-old boy looking through a rain-streaked window can see exactly what adults are too afraid to believe, that love never really dies. It just finds new ways to show up in our lives when we need it most. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that love is stronger than loss. And if you believe in second chances, guardian angels, or the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, subscribe to our channel for more stories that will remind you that miracles happen every single day. We just have to have the courage to recognize them when they appear. Tell me in the comments, do you believe that people we've lost continue to guide us toward the people and experiences we need? Your stories might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.